looking out for number one, man. I'm looking out for me. But it says we must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. And we talk often about this word here. That's not really a word, but it's become a word. And I saw it on someone else's blog, and that makes it a word, right? The three of us read it. We say be Jesus-y. In that we want to act and look like Jesus. And we want to have the same attitude. Jesus is the model for everything we do. And so we go about trying to live life then like Jesus. It says, though he was God, Jesus, he did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. We're reading the New Living Translation. If you have the ESV, I know some of you, it's, do not count equality with God as a thing to be grasped, which I thought was always confusing, because the 84 NIV says, that same thing, something to be grasped. I think the new NIV, some of you who aren't even following this, some of you who are like Bible translation geeks are like, yes. The original manuscript, the Bible's written in Hebrew and in the Old Testament, in Aramaic, and then the Greek is the New Testament, and we have to kind of translate ideas. And if anybody who speak other languages, sometimes it's hard to kind of capture the essence of a passage, and so people try different ways. When I read that, it's something to be grasped. The way I read that is like you didn't understand it, which is kind of weird, because how could you be God and not understand it? But I think a better translation, is this. It's not something to grasp, to hold on to cling to. So actually, the New Living Translation, I think, is a better one. It's he doesn't hold to who he is. Jesus was, this is like Jesus 101 here, but Jesus existed before he existed. He's God and he's man in a special way that's really hard for us to understand. I guess that would be a whole other sermon, but I don't think we're going to have room in this series. Justin is like, you're my scribe, because he's always writing stuff down. But now you're thinking he's a Pharisee. No. I also made Justin jokes a lot if you were here. Anyway, Justin and I, we have a lot of fun. At least I have fun at his expense. But so Jesus existed before. He is God, but John 1:1 says the Word was God, and he came, he dwelt among us. And so Jesus, and that's what Philippians is expressing too. He comes and he doesn't give up who he is, but he sort of sets aside that and humbles himself. He says instead he gave up his divine privileges. He took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being. He came and he lived in a normal way. Now, it was interesting because I spend probably too much time on reading online, and I get into different comments. People are always wondering, like, what about those missing years of Jesus? Because if you read the Gospels, we see Jesus being born. Matthew and Luke show us that. And then it's like, you see this one boyhood encounter when he's around 13, and he's, and then it was like, you kind of don't see anything again until he's 30. So there's some big gaps in his life. And it's interesting, because I remember in college, I came to faith when I was about 20, and so I got really interested in biblical studies and different things, and I went to a traditional Bible college, University of Pittsburgh. Some of you will understand how funny that is. But, I was taking all these different classes because, I was kind of interested in this now. And I remember, people, if you don't, if there's these missing years, people try to fill it in with crazy stuff. But, people have kind of all these theories and different things, and you kind of, what did Jesus do? Well, he would have lived a normal life. And he was, Joseph was his adopted dad, and so he was a carpenter. Actually, the word there could be carpenter, stonemason. He built stuff. And so Jesus would have just lived this normal life. He made chairs or houses, or he worked all day, came home, with a lunchbox. I don't know why. I picture like one of those metal lunchboxes your grandfather had. I know it wouldn't have had a lunchbox in a thermos, but that's how I picture it. And so he had this attitude of humility, even though he was awesome. He's God. And humility is really countercultural sometimes. There was a certain boxer a few years ago, some of you will remember Muhammad Ali. He said, it's hard to be humble when you're as great as I am. I think that's kind of maybe the mantra for a lot of us. When you look at a picture, there's a picture online, you get tagged in, or maybe there's a picture of you went to a class reunionish thing. You see a picture of who's the first person you look for in a picture? Yourself. You're not like, let me see if my friend's in that. We're sort of all naturally, is my hair okay? And then okay, this picture's fine, even though my friend blinked and their hair's a mess. We'll pick this one because I look good in it. Here's the thing. In life, you won't find true happiness if all you focus on is yourself. Because if you don't like what you see, you'll be miserable. And if you love what you see, you'll be miserable because everyone doesn't think you're as awesome as you think you are. But we should be humble like Jesus is humble. Now, here's the thing, humility. Again, I think when I say the word humility, probably different people have different things in mind. And that's the tough thing with English, with any language. Some people, think weakness. Humility is not weakness. To be humble is not to be weak. Humility is not letting people bully and beat you. I'm going to be humble. I'm just going to take it. No, that's bullying and beating. That would be a whole other sermon, but I don't think it's going to make this one. It's not having a poor self-image. Sometimes we think we have to just think we're trash and horrible. They call it worm theology. We just think we're horrible. And I think people tend to either think too much of themselves or think too little of themselves. It's sort of hard to have that. But humility is this idea of strength under control. It says when he appeared in human form, continuing in Philippians, he humbled himself in obedience to God and died a criminal's death on the cross. He's obedient to death because he wants to be. It's not something that caught him off guard. If you look at the Gospels, Jesus is constantly saying, this is the direction he's headed. And it's sort of like Undercover Boss. Do you guys like that show? I haven't watched it in a while, but I love it because usually the CEO goes and they work for their own company and they have interesting experiences, and everyone thinks, they usually say, we're filming a reality show about someone trying to get back in the workforce. And there's so many reality shows, I guess it's believable. But I would think if you've seen Undercover Boss, how do they keep doing this? Are there people out there who haven't seen this show? And then the employees don't know, and then it's revealed, they're the boss, and then good things happen. And that's kind of, that's Philippians 2. Jesus is undercover boss. He was given clues, he was saying who he was, but people didn't quite get it. And then boom, he shows who he is. Eventually reveals himself to everyone. And this attitude, though, of humility that we see in Philippians, it is something that we see in the Gospels. When we read about who Jesus is, and again, I had 15 pages of notes, but I pulled it down to one example. In John chapter 13, see, you thought we were going to go through it, didn't you? There's a whole other section over here for those of you who can't see the people over there. I'm not just weirdly pointing to Justin, I'm weirdly pointing to everyone over there. It says this, in John 13, and this passage might be familiar to some of you. It says, before the Passover celebration, Jesus knew that his hour had come to leave this world and return to his Father. He had loved his disciples during his ministry on earth, and now he loved them to the very end. And this is the Passover celebration, which is this celebration of God redeeming Abraham's great-great-great-grandkids after 400 years of slavery in Egypt. He brings them out and he institutes this Passover meal. And Jesus is coming and he's giving it the fuller significance. We did communion, this is the week before I left, right? Because we baptized people on the beach and we did communion, so we were calling it Sacerdotal Sunday. That's a real fancy term I learned at a conference one time. You can look that one up. There won't be a sermon on that. It is fun to say though. Anyway, it's Jesus gives Passover its full meaning. He's doing this in the Last Supper, and it says, he knew his hour had come to leave this world. And so he knew that it was a short time before he would return to the Father. And so, it kind of, if you knew you were going to die tomorrow, this is like one of those, like, as a youth pastor, I'm asked this question a bazillion times. How would you live differently today? Well, I don't know. Like, I'd probably sit around going, oh my gosh, I'm going to die tomorrow. But maybe you'd go skydiving because you're like, well, I'm going to die tomorrow, not today. So, yeah. But Jesus, if you were going to die, you kind of want to impart something that would be memorable to people. If you have children, you'd probably spend your day with them, kind of try to impart things. We would probably videotape stuff and everything. They didn't have, how do you all still videotape something, but it's not really tape anymore. That's just because I'm old. And I remember when there was tape. He loved his disciples. He loved them to the very end. And so, it said it was time for supper. The devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. And Jesus knew that the Father had given him authority over everything. He had come from God and would return to God. And so he got up from the table. He took off his robe, wrapped the towel around his waist, poured water into a basin, and then he began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with the towel he had around them. So Jesus, he has authority over all things. Like those number one big thumb fingers? That's Jesus. He's number one. He's the only one who can wear the big thumb finger. And so he's number one. And it says, he washes his disciples' feet. Now, if you have grown up in church, you've heard this, right? And you're just like, Jeff's talking now, right? Because sometimes I think the danger is if you've been in church, you've heard it so much, you've just heard it enough that you don't even hear it anymore. You know what I mean? Some of you do. And if you grew up in certain traditions, you actually wash people's feet. Has anyone ever done that? Oh, wow. I got a big bucket. We're going to know. See, people are leaving. Washing someone's feet is not something like we normally do. We've kind of made it into a ritual. Don't worry, we're not going to do it today. We're also not going to greet each other with a holy kiss. There's a few things we're going to leave out from the Bible. But washing someone's feet, if you picture, when we're at the beach, like I don't wear shoes half the time, or you're kind of walking around, you get kind of sand caked on your feet, and then it's all in your car and everything. Picture walking around in the Middle East, and you kind of just your feet, like what?
Fair.
Walking around the fair, Yeah, some of you were at the fair, and your feet, probably if you had a friend and they came over to your house, you might not even want them to take off their shoes. You're certainly probably not going to want to wash your feet. And washing someone's feet was sort of the lowliest of the low kind of job. Non-slave people weren't even supposed to do it because it's a low job. It's this, nobody wants to do it. It's like your feet get nasty, I'm sorry. They're sweaty, they're gross, they got weird funguses. It's true. I've seen some feet that I wouldn't want to wash after they were soaked in chlorine for an hour, let alone after a day of work. And so, this image is Jesus strips down to basically like his pajamas. He takes off his outer stuff, he wraps a towel around his waist. And I think to picture this as an image, I was trying to think of, anyone like Thanksgiving? Yes. Lance can have a good Thanksgiving. But Thanksgiving, you picture whoever, this, like in your family, does someone cut the turkey at the table? And usually who is that? grandpa, it's like, it's usually an older person. You're not like, hey, here's a 2-year-old, here, get a giant sharp knife and cut the throat. It's usually kind of the person who's going to end up sitting at the head of the table, or if that person just can't cut, maybe the person, but it's kind of a person of, it's really in our culture to go this place. Imagine that person at Thanksgiving cutting the turkey, and then, stripping down to a t-shirt, going around and washing everyone's feet. It's not something that we would kind of naturally do. Jesus is going around. Picture the Last Supper, and they're all laying down, and Jesus is army crawling at their feet. And he's washing their feet. It says when Jesus came to Simon Peter, I always like Peter because I like Peter because Peter says and does stupid things. Because sometimes I say and do stupid things. Some of you are like, yeah, after sermon. No, but Jesus, when Jesus came to Simon Peter, Peter said to him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? Which I think is a funny question, but a good rendition of the Greek would be like, Master, it's kind of more this like Peter's confused because this is not something normal, masters do. It's not something somebody in authority would do. It's not something your rabbi, your teacher would do. And so, he's sort of reluctant. He's like, it's unthinkable. This crosses social boundaries. This is not, but Jesus often crossed social boundaries. He loved the marginalized. He treated women with respect in a way that wasn't always a part of that culture. He honored children. He touched lepers who were social outcasts. That's who Jesus is, and he's doing that. But Peter somehow, through all that, misses Jesus' point. That's what makes this such a memorable thing. And Jesus replied, you don't understand now what I'm doing, but someday you will. And it's not until he's died and is resurrected that his disciples really understand what Jesus is doing. And so, no, Peter protested, you'll never, ever wash my feet. Jesus replied, unless I wash you, you won't belong to me. Then again, like Peter, he's like, okay, then wash my hands and head as well, not just my feet. He goes from like, don't touch me, to like, wash all of me. And so, one extreme to the next. And again, it's comforting because Peter says some crazy stuff. Because, every once in a while, I say some crazy stuff. Not here. He said, Jesus replied, a person who is bathed all over does not need to wash except for the feet to be entirely clean. And you disciples are clean, but not all of you. For Jesus knew who would betray him. That is what he meant. He said, not all of you are clean. So Jesus washed Judas' feet too, even though he knew to betray him. Kind of, think of that. Judas was there too. And this is after washing his feet. But where he sat down, he asked, do you understand what I was doing? I'm thinking they would probably say no. That they should, but they don't. He says, you call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, because that's what I am. And since I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash each other's feet. I have given you an example to follow. Do as I have done to you. I tell you the truth, slaves are not greater than your master, nor is the messenger more important than the one who sends the message. Now that you know these things, God will bless you for doing them. I didn't bring a bucket. I should have just shocked you, like, okay, now we're going to wash each other's feet and watch you kind of crawl a little bit going, oh no. And, it was interesting. I did it actually, a Young Life thing one time. We did it. I don't know why we did it, but, because it was there. And it was actually more awkward, I think, to have my feet washed. Anyone who's done it, you agree? Like, it was like a little awkward to be washing someone's feet. You know that well, but it was really awkward, I think, to have it washed. And there's a statue, actually, I meant to bring it, but I left it in my office. But, first week back, give me a break. I actually have two statues. It's sort of this iconic moment where, Peter's sitting there, and they have Peter kind of sitting in a chair usually, although maybe reclining, and so Jesus washing his feet. And one of the seminaries I went to, had a big picture, had a big statue of that in the lobby, and then when we graduated, they gave us that to remind us that, it's really about service. It's not about what I can get, but it's about what we do. And when I went to Tanzania, I got like a nice little card. Wouldn't want you to go sit in my office if you want. But it's this image of a servant king. Jesus had all authority. He could have said, "Wash my feet," but instead he washes feet. And Christianity, faith in Jesus, means we serve. We often prefer to be served. In the 80s, if you were a child, you were the TV remote. Because they didn't have remotes to TVs. I know, now if I can't find my remote, I don't even know how to turn my TV on without one. In those days, you didn't have one, you had children. In the 70s, I think you had to actually hold the rabbit ears to get reception, too. I don't know, in the 50s, did you have to hold the TV up? I don't know. Anyone? We prefer to be served. Like, anyone, you're thirsty, and you wait till someone else gets up, you're watching TV, you're like, "Hey, while you're up, could you fix me a rack of ribs?" I don't we're tired. And a lot of times it's easier to want to be served. But Jesus said in verse 34 and 35, "So I'm giving you a commandment, love each other. Just as I have loved you, you should love each other. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples." He loved us, so we love others. And that means serving people, not always being served. It really is counterculture. I remember, I wasn't even a believer then, but I remember going on a canoe trip when I was in high school with the Boy Scouts, and I remember, this idea of servant leadership. I think it's some things like Scouts and things. It's a part of that culture. So I remember I volunteered to do the dishes the first night, and I was one of the larger kids. I don't know if it's easy to imagine that. Because I was like 17, and the kid in the front of my canoe was like 13, and would just sit there with a paddle in the front, and I had to paddle the whole way when the Canadian chase through. So I was hungry at the end of the day, and the younger kids were like stuffed and going, "Oh, that was great," and I was like, "Oh gosh, I'm so hungry." And because they knew I was hungry, they just assumed, well, Jeff's doing that so he can scrape the pot and eat it. So he threw a bunch of dirt in the pot. I know. I know, it's terrible. I hadn't even thought about eating it until they did that. But here's the thing. It was almost unbelievable that I would just serve, right? Because our culture is so much about serve me. It's so much about what's in it for me. And so some people, honestly, when you serve them, they're going to be like, "What's your angle?" What's our angle? It's because we're Jesus' disciples. It's not that we get something out of it, but that's how we live because, because we're followers of Jesus. And, I think in America, within Christianity, we develop these different ideas about who God is. I mean, obviously, if you're a believer in Jesus and you read the Bible, you think, okay, that's who God is. We sort of misconstrue some of his characteristics. Some of us, think that, God is the police. He's just waiting for us to go do the wrong thing. I mean, some of us think of God as a judge, and, we're going to, have good and bad. People are like, sometimes you talk about people, what do you think's going to happen when you die? Well, I think my good will outweigh my bad. And I'm like, man, you just better hope you don't have a bad week right before you go, But I think a prevalent view of God in church sometimes, and maybe we wouldn't think of it this way, but it's this idea of God as Santa Claus. That God is just blessing us, he's rewarding us with toys. But here's the thing, it's not God's goal to make you happy. Now, God will often bless us with stuff, but again, go back to Abraham. We're blessed so we can be a blessing. And life is not about our being comfortable, happy, successful, and pain-free. We're here, to be loved by God and to serve. It's not about us. And foot washing is this great picture of grace. The disciples, if they're sitting there and their feet haven't been washed, what does that tell us? One, there was no servant there to maybe wash it, but two, they didn't offer to wash each other's feet, did they? Would have been a whole different, story. It's understandable culturally why they didn't. Maybe they didn't think of it. It's for something for lowly people. But the irony is, Jesus is the only one really worthy to put on the kingly robe. He's about to go back to the Father. He's going to be honored for who he is. He's the only one there who really deserved to have his feet washed, if you will. But he chooses not to have his feet washed, but to wash. And Christianity is about service. It's about putting others before yourself. It's not that you think less of yourself. Someone said, he's not thinking less of yourself, but thinking less of yourself less often. I think I should really write down quotes that I'm going to use. If we have this challenge then as followers of Jesus, aren't we going to be self-centered or other-centered? It's easy for me to be self-centered. It's easy for me to kind of ask, what's in it for me? But we should be asking, how does this serve Christ or others? Is this a way that God is calling me to serve? The way to find yourself is to give yourself in service. We're made to serve. And here's where it can get weird too. There's a lot of things in the Bible that we call tensions. In that, for instance, we're saved by grace. Okay, it's not, you're not made right with God by what you do, but it's purely by God's grace. But if you're made right with God by his grace, then we have to do something, right? We live our life differently because of that. And so I think the tension here is, my notes went to sleep. The tension here is a tension between sort of legalistic then service or then sort of a laziness. We can be so, if I say it's not about you serve, then service can become something you do out of obligation. It's something you do not because we love God and we love people, but it becomes, I have to do this. If I'm going to be right with God, I have to do this. And we really, it's like, you guys drive cars? I just had to get a lot of feedback today. I just think you're out there. Okay, you drive a car. If you let go of the steering wheel when you're driving down the highway, what happens?
You driving straight on your line.
You should. That's actually how you test it, but I wouldn't do 70 miles an hour on a crowded highway. So that's how you test. You test your alignment by going on the back road that's somewhat straight, which is hard to find here. But you let go of the wheel, and if you go left or you go right, you need to go get an alignment, or your tires are going to get a little weird wear and everything. And it's tough because we have to constantly make a steering alignment. We can go too much towards ourselves, or we can go too much towards, just working and working and working. Now, and I've seen that in churches. There's like this tension is that sometimes then we go, we need to serve others, and then. Some of us have been this because you've been on committees, and you've been on a committee to get people on committees. You laugh, but there are those apparently. Because then it becomes about, I have to, okay, we have a couple things we're going to be announcing. I'm going to steal one of your announcements today. One of the announcements we have later is with the Code Purple project. We organize that, and it's a big thing. The Firefly, we pick up all this leftover camping gear. We kind of repurpose it for Code Purple to help the homeless. Good project, a lot of you were involved in it. But tomorrow we'll get all the sleeping bags, we'll start back from the cleaners, and we'll be rolling them and everything and doing all that to get it in order. Now, I tell you to serve others, and then you're like, oh, I gotta go do the purple thing. And so you come in and you do that. And then it's like, we actually have a roof problem that is kind of why we got to get fixed, and so we're working on that. And so you're like, oh, I got to go help check the roof problem. And then it's like, somebody, we have a crew of people who comes and they mow the lawn. So you come do that, you mow the lawn. And it's like, oh, well, Jeff's got some painting we got to do around the church. And, we have 2 big festivals coming up that Jess will tell you more about later. So we got to help with those. And you can get out of balance. I've seen people in churches become so busy. I'm not saying that. But we have to be aware that life is not about us. It's not about just me being happy. And I was thinking about this with driving. We have a foot washing God. Therefore, we should live foot washing lives. We should serve people. Now, when I drive, I've occasionally expressed to you that I struggle. What was it? Josh called it passive road rage with me the other day. Because it's like I get frustrated sometimes when I drive. Anyone not get frustrated when you drive? Liars. But here's the thing. I get upset when somebody cuts me off. Anyone? Yeah. Why do I get upset? Because it's annoying, because it's unsafe. I think the root of it for me is they've inconvenienced me. Because I've cut people off too. We get frustrated because they've slowed me down. It's really kind of a selfish thing if you think about it. Because often I'm upset not because they did something wrong, but because they did something wrong to me. And I'm more important than they are. They're driving the speed limit down this road. What are they doing? At home, I'm gonna go mostly with husband-wives here for a second. Sometimes at home, Bible says husbands love your wives as Christ loved the church. We get mad though, why? Because our needs aren't met. Now that's not like an excuse for the other spouse to be a jerk, but we have to check our motivations. Like, why are we doing it? Why are we upset? In marriage, it shouldn't be a fight over who's boss, but who's going to serve. I often say, and again, that's a whole other sermon. We're talking, and we've talked about it some though. It's like what a biblical marriage looks like. And we talk about that some in premarital counseling, different things. And a lot of men, I think, have this idea, I'm the leader of the household. And what they really mean by that is what? What? I'm in charge. Listen to me. I've got a list. Which is funny, because women can have a list, but men can't. The honey-do list, men don't have a list. But anyways, he's in charge. But, what biblical leadership means, husband, you say you want to be the leader, is when that pipe bursts at 2 a.m., you're the one of the house. You're serving. And that's how we're created to be. We're created to serve. We're created, to love, to serve. In a world where the world is often hostile to what Christian faith is, and we talk about persecution. You can download that one. You can listen to it. I'm not going to preach. That's not another sermon. That was for the sermon the other day. But in a world that's often hostile to faith, followers of Jesus should be known for being Jesus-y. And And you know, Jesus forgives, so we forgive. You know, Jesus loves, so we love. Jesus serves, so we serve. It's not all about you. So as the worship team comes back to play, I have my waterproof Bible with me today, so I don't have the connection card in there. But we'd love